guys, it's Anne. Welcome to my home worm farming channel. If you're new here, this is a kind community. You can ask as many questions as you like and nobody will fault you for it. So go ahead, ask your newbie questions. And even if you're not a newbie, sometimes things you need more help. Today we're looking in on the red wigglers. And what we have here are the top 3 layers of my tower system. This part is currently in foraging mode. This part is being actively fed people food, and this one has just had bedding. So let's take a look and see how they're doing on this. And yikes, is it wet. Wow. A good thing I wasn't looking for a harvest from this thing lately, or today, anytime soon, because it is wet. This is going to have to dry out significantly before we can do anything with this. Yikes. So that's getting nothing. That is going to just forage. I had been giving it worm chow, but I think they've got enough stuff in there right now. I'm not going to give them anything extra. So this is the feeding layer. And you can see there's cardboard and coconut coir that we gave them last time. Trying to make things a little bit more friable, because honestly, if it gets super sticky like that over there, you're asking for trouble. It's really hard to get it to straighten out. Should probably leave the lid off this next time. Believe it or not, this is part of packaging that is slowly degrading. So we're gonna keep giving it a chance. This is supposed to be completely biodegradable. And so we're going to keep giving it a chance. We're going to bury that back under there. That looks pretty good. Worms are doing a good job. Good job, worms! Now this one over here has just had bedding. It hasn't had any people food. We might have given it some grit, but it has not had regular people food. Now, I'm gonna see, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there are springtails in here right by my thumb. They're little, now from what I understand, there's a lot of different kind of springtails, and some of them just walk around and other ones jump like crickets. Mine are the jumping kind. Looks like these ones are a little bit of the walking kind, but they're helpers. They're annoying, they're creepy, but they're helping. They are shredders, and they are going to help get rid of that cardboard and that coconut coir, and that way the worms can eat it when they get done with it. So if you have any questions, there's quite a few people that watch my channel that have been doing this for decades. I'm not really even on my first decade. Oop, I found a cocoon. So hopefully I'm getting that close enough. You can see it's kind of a greenish yellow. So probably in another couple of weeks, we will get 2 or 3, looking at the size of that cocoon, it's pretty small, 2 or 3 babies out of there after it hatches. Oops, and here's another one. Here's another cocoon. That's a little bigger, so we might get 4 or 5 out of that one. As far as red wigglers go, the bigger the worm, the bigger the cocoon, and you can normally get more baby worms out of a bigger cocoon. When you're looking at other larger species like European night crawlers, even though their cocoons are really big, you generally only get a couple of worms, babies, out of it. And in case you're wondering, a baby worm is called a wisp. All right, so, and let me see, I've actually got an older cocoon right here. It's kind of getting to bronze color, and the closer it gets to brown, the closer it is to hatching. I'm not sure if that's from like maybe the tannins or whatever in the castings, but just putting these two side by side, you can see how one of them is yellow and one of them is brown. The yellow one is newly made, whereas the brown one's been around for a while. And depending on the temperature and the moisture, they can take anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months to hatch. So if you're impatient, you should probably just not pay attention at all. because it'll drive you nuts. This time of year, with it being cold, then we probably aren't going to get those very soon. But it is pretty wet, so you never know. It's best to just let the worms do what the worms are going to do. When you're a new worm farmer, it'll drive you nuts. You're like, oh, I see all these cocoons, but I don't see any babies. There are a lot of cocoons in here. I think this temperature and moisture is really the sweet spot for worms. And now that I'm looking, I see a lot of springtails in here. I'm not sure if you can see. I'll try and zoom in when I'm editing. But they're just boing, 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 all over the place. But there's lots of cocoons in here. These worms are going crazy. All right, now let's look at the last two layers. Okay, so this one here is the next one up, and it just has bedding and a little bit of grit. Really nothing to report home about here. Just damp cardboard. There might be a worm or two in here, but I'm not seeing them at this moment. And here was the layer that we added last time. Because I've been adding so much pumpkin, I wanted there to be something sort of dry down there to absorb the moisture. And I'm not seeing any worms at all. In fact, it doesn't look like the moisture even made it this far. So there's nothing to really see here other than that this is shredded notebook paper and an egg carton. So I'm going to restack it. This is in the bottom. This is the next one up, and then we'll get together and we'll feed them. And if you saw these, if you saw these in the corners and wondered, what is that? That doesn't come with that set. It does not. But I did have a viewer, Michael, that had said that it will help maintain the plastic for longer and it won't bow because the lower ones are holding all the weight. It might not be necessary, but if it helps the plastic live longer, I mean, this is a nearly $100 investment in this tower, unless you get it on sale. So I am all for having this live for as long as possible. So these are just regular old water pipe. And I didn't really so much measure them as I did put them in. And there is an area where you can tell when they're stacked together where they kind of nest. And I wanted it to be a little bit higher up so that it's not squishing them too hard. I want to be able to have, you know, good airflow and stuff. So I cut them, basically I looked at some that were squished and then I made it a little taller. I think these are 2.5 inches. I don't know. My finger's supposed to be 3 inches and this is a little bit shorter than 3 inches, so. All right, let's pack this one back up. We're not feeding this, we're giving it nothing. It is just down there soaking up juices from the food, and the worms are just down there doing what worms do. So this one here is from September. This was started in September, and this is the one that we are going to feed today, and it's going to get some pumpkin. There's probably almost 5 pounds of worms in here on all the different layers. So I do feed them quite a bit. This is an established system, and so they can handle it. Some of these pumpkins that have been frozen and thawed and frozen and thawed, they almost look like spaghetti squash, don't they? All right. And I'm going to give these guys a little bit of azomite for grit. It might help out in the future in the garden because it's got a bunch of, I have no idea what just happened there. It has a lot of minerals that the bacteria and the worms can convert into something usable. Rock dust, of course, is not immediately usable for plants. It needs the biology in the soil to break it down. So I figure if I add it here, it might be ready by the time the plants need it later. And this layer here is kind of a hot mess, and I am just going to leave it. It needs to dry out. I actually think I might want to put some coconut coir in here to kind of give it a chance to break up a little bit. Kind of goes against the way I generally run these bins. But this I have, you know, this is a mud ball. This is not going to be good castings for me. So I'm going to put some coconut coir in there. Kind of goes against the way I run this bin. I usually don't add bedding this late in the game, but that is just so sticky. This is one way to kind of mitigate problems. When you start having problems in a worm bin, you kind of have to be a little bit more flexible and do what makes sense. If I just left this, these would all turn, and tried to let it dry out on its own, these would turn into little rocks. And then you would probably have to dissolve them in water in order to get them to break up and be usable in the garden. So not everybody that gives me food grinds up the eggshells. So yeah, I know I should grind them. But people who donate through the wormery don't all feel the same way. All right, let's see if that helps. And maybe the next time this will be in better condition than it is right now. And if it's not, we might have to get a little bit more extreme. All right, well, if you like the red wigglers in the tower system, I have a playlist that I have right over here. And if you've already seen that, YouTube thinks you're gonna like this video right over here. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me and my worms, and everybody have a good day.